Hey guys, welcome to Happy Hour History. My name is Saber Spark, and with me today is,
The final draft.
and we got our new host joining us today as well.
Oh dear.
What is your name?
Uh, Beardy?
What
Miss.
is your quest?
I seek the Grail.
Not you.
I had to just admit. What if he didn't get it? What if he didn't get it?
Really?
Really?
No,
Really?
no. Listen, there are 3 people at my coffee shop who don't know the Holy Grail, and they haven't seen Star Wars either.
Are they college age girls?
Yes. How'd you know?
Yeah. Because there's like this uncanny like black hole of cultural knowledge in the freshman and sophomore college girls, and then like by the time they're seniors, they're experts in everything.
Oh God.
That's just been my experience at liberal arts colleges.
So last time you all were here, we were talking about who would win. You know,
Who would win?
Mordor versus Rome and such. Any other like final thoughts on that before we move on to our new subjects today?
I get the feeling we're going to be touching on that subject again at some point.
Yeah, that argument will never be closed, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean that is a battle that will forever rage.
And that as and will fade into legend. All right, so I wanted to know, what are y'all drinking tonight?
Well, I am trying for the first time a bottle of Not Your Father's root beer, which I've heard of a bunch of times.
Fine choice.
It's pretty
Sweet.
good.
I think I had that when I was in Florida.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's from La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is only about 2 hours away from me, so that's pretty cool.
Good stuff. Good choice.
The what do you call them, Wisconians? Why do they have so much beer up north?
Because it gets cold in the winter, and there's not too much else to do but sit inside and drink.
Absolutely true.
And we also work harder than the rest of
Oh,
you
hush.
lazy Southerners. I don't
Listen. We're too busy bottling our Coke and packaging. Oh, I had a sad story today. Y'all ready for this one?
Non sequitur.
No, I got a sad story for you. I went to work. On the way there, I was hungry. I decided to go visit a Georgian establishment called Chick-fil-A.
Oh, jeez.
I've been trying to lose weight, and I've been trying to exercise, and I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to get myself a deep-fried chicken sandwich with pepper jack cheese. Yes. All right? Yes, that's what I want. And I went there, and my mouth was watering. I waited in line for like 5 minutes because it gets packed at lunchtime. And I finally pulled up to the window, and I was looking around my car. I'm like, where's my wallet? Where's my wallet? And then it hit me. Oh, no. I don't have it.
Oh,
And
man.
I looked at the register, and I'm like, not even the cashier. I looked at the register. I'm like, I don't have money. I'm going to have to go get my wallet. I looked at the clock, and I realized there's not even enough time to come close to getting to my house, getting my wallet, coming back here, waiting in line, getting food, and going to work. It'd be impossible.
Aw.
So no Chick-fil-A. But I had Zaxby's.
What, you had what now?
That's even a rarer. Like, everyone knows about Chick-fil-A. Zaxby's, that's even more Georgian in a way, in the sense that it's another. Georgians love their chicken. Like, it's a big.
Saxby's sounds like a pre-prohibition saloon. Like where you'd meet Ernest Hemingway before he got his shit
Right.
together.
I would say like a late 1800s politician, actually.
Zaxby, you're right.
Ernest P. Saxby here.
That's a
I
chicken
tell you,
place.
gold is the standard we should stand by. Gold.
Zaxby's is just another chicken restaurant here in Georgia. It's not even that different from Chick-fil-A. Just more of a sit-down place.
Cast your vote for Ernest P. Saxby. The man who can show you daring do. Not the pony.
Just because, real quickly, since we're on the topic of Georgia and Paleo's in the chat, Paleo, there's a girl at my work, okay, who just started working there, and she's pretty cute and everything. We're happy hour ADD. No, but apparently she's a scuba diver, and she's gone swimming with the great whale sharks, or the whale sharks and the manta rays and the dolphins at the Georgia Aquarium, and I was very jealous. Her dad's
cool.
rich, apparently. Okay, I want to know, what are you all drinking? Like, Beardy, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a wonderful combination of mug root beer and Captain Morgan Black
Ooh,
Spice Rum.
that sounds
That's
really
pretty good. That's pretty good.
Quite tasty.
I'm so
It's a little
basic.
strong, which is good.
I have PBR.
Oh,
You
dear God.
PBR.
Yeah.
Are you
Okay, you know what?
serious?
What's wrong?
Everything.
Why?
Why are you becoming a hipster?
Oh,
When did this start?
hold on.
When did this start?
Hold on. I got a story for you. All right?
Are you wearing pink
No,
pants?
I'm wearing black basketball shorts and I'm wearing my Saitama shirt. All right.
Okay, but still, when did you become the hipster?
I'm not. There's just beer upstairs and I drank it. So this is what happened. Okay.
There's this beer upstairs and I drank it.
It was leftover from beer bread. So PBR. I don't know what happened. Like PBR used to be a very like redneck beer. Like I remember my brother-in-law and his friends would drink it, and they still do. And then I went to, I believe it was the first Cider Fest or was it Fiesta Quest? I don't know. I started finding out that like hipsters, especially Vancouver hipsters, were loving PBR.
Uptown hipsters in Minneapolis are all about PBR.
I don't get it. Why? It's
hipsters everywhere are in love with PBR.
I told my
PBR
brother-in-law that, and he got pissed. He's like,
No,
"That's
it's
my
true.
culture." He goes, "That's our culture." He goes, "It doesn't belong to hipsters. It belongs to the to us Southern boys."
No, it's definitely hipster now. Now. There's only one redeeming quality of PBR. Actually, two.
Its taste, it's pretty good.
No, that's definitely not a redeeming quality for that beer. One redeeming quality is that it's usually cheap. The other redeeming quality is that the Blue Ribbon in Pabst Blue Ribbon was awarded at the 1893 World's Fair, which I'm obsessed with. So that's pretty cool.
Nerd. All right, and also according to the can, it was established in Milwaukee in 1844.
There you go.
Man, you Wisconians. Okay,
I'm not Wisconsinian.
whatever, same thing.
No,
Yes,
no.
it's all just a big old blob of northern states, Minnesota.
It's just a flyover area that managed to burn through our cities 150 years ago.
Listen, I was born.
Lost the
I was
Civil
born.
War.
I was born in the north. All right.
Wow. I didn't expect the Northerner to bring up the Civil War first.
You know what? I like to hold it over, Saber, because it's about the only thing I can.
Okay, so this episode is about the what ifs of history. Like, what if? Like you're the one who suggested this topic, Mike. where-
Yeah. Well, okay, so maybe just to give you a pretext. So here's the way it works: is that I talked to Saber earlier today. I sent Beardy a message today. Also, all three of us have come up with 5 what if historical questions.
Mhm.
None of us have heard each other's questions yet. I propose the way we go about this is that we go round robin. So let's say Saber, Beardy, then me.
Okay.
Sure.
Throw the question out there. The other 2 respond to it, and then you respond with your theory. Because
Okay, I like
these
that.
questions, I don't know about you guys, but like I definitely have very clear ideas on a lot of the answers to my questions.
Right.
So I figured that way that would spur some discussion.
Okay, I like that system. Okay, so I don't want to like come out of the gate with like, what if the Nazis won World War II? Because I'm sure I'll probably get around to it.
Well, I wonder actually. I'm going to ask because I intentionally didn't put that on my list. Did Beardy? Did you?
I put a variation of that on my list.
Okay, because I've definitely watched The Man in the High Castle, which is
Exactly.
an amazing TV show.
Yes.
Amazing.
Wait, isn't it finished?
No, it's just season 1 is done.
Okay, I need to catch up with that then.
Oh my god, so good.
All right, how about this one? Okay.
All right.
My first suggestion is: what if Mexico entered World War II and fought against the Americans? How would that have changed the outcome?
Can I propose an amendment to that question?
Yes.
Instead of World War II, because they actually fought on the Allied side, and a lot of people don't know this, and sent a lot of warplanes over to Italy and stuff and troops. They actually fought starting in like 43, so they were very heavily Allied. But
I thought they were.
I think you're coming off of the Zimmerman telegram,
Yeah.
and I think you're talking about World War One, really.
I thought. Oh, you're right. I'm dumb. You're right. You're right. You're right.
So if we're talking about World War One, then yeah, I think that's a more, I don't know, closer to reality scenario.
You're
And
right.
it also would have been a lot more detrimental to the Allies.
All right. So what?
By World War II, the U.S. would have had enough industrial production and enough people that Mexico would not have stood much of a threat. Mexico had been in decline for the last half century.
Yep.
If Mexico had attacked us, say, in 1913 or 1914, it would have been a much different story.
Now, in a sense, they did attack us around then. Like in the Revolution of 1911, Pancho Villa sent a couple of
Right, but that was that was minor compared to what the entire country could have done.
So Saber, tell me if this sounds about right. So the Zimmerman telegram, for people who don't know, it was a telegram that was intercepted by the Americans because the Germans were being, I guess, sloppy. That was sent by a foreign minister of the German Empire in 1915 during World War I, before the U.S. had joined, trying to convince Mexico's government to declare war on America and promising support and promising to help Mexico reclaim territories lost in the Mexican-American War about, 70 years beforehand. Because if people don't know this, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, all of those states used to be part of the country of Mexico. And Mexico lost a third of its territory to the U.S. After it lost the Mexican-American War. And so there still were people who were thinking there was some way that they were going to be able to reclaim those territories. So I can see potentially, like, let's say Mexico had a more nationalistic government then and decided to invade Texas, because I think that's where they would have gone first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that happening. And the Germans, I don't think would have... I don't think they would have sent much aside from like financial support and maybe military hardware. I don't think they would have sent troops, though.
I mean, a lot of it was the fact that Germany really didn't have the ability to send stuff across the ocean at that point because of the massive Allied blockade.
So I think what would have really happened is that, I think that it would have elongated World War One. Like, I still think that the Allies would have won.
So let's look at it like this. The best case scenario on the part of the Mexicans and Germans is that Mexico attacks America. America cannot send land forces. Mm-hmm. Even without America's land forces, I think that war still would have ended with, if nothing else, a stalemate favoring the Allied powers.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I agree with that. I think it would have extended the war, though, because, as soon as the Doughboys landed in France, I mean, it sped the process.
It was already a foregone conclusion by that point. Now, what's interesting is that may have extended the war, and it might have caused the war to end on a more neutral footing, so the Treaty of Paris might not have been so repugnant, and it might have actually prevented World War II.
I think the U.S. would have won that war with Mexico at that point.
Right.
And I think we would have annexed territories because we were still pretty imperialist.
Sure, we would have probably taken over another third or more of Mexico, and there would have been another row of states along our southern border.
Probably Baja California, Chihuahua, which is a state, not just a dog.
Right.
I'd say as far down as maybe even Monterey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that we would have taken another northern chunk.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I think it'd be interesting to, like, I can see, like, World War One at that point would have and somebody in the chat's asking when Mexico lost part of its territory. In 1848, and then again in 1853 with the Gadsden Purchase, though that was a purchase.
Yeah.
That was Santa Anna being an idiot. But yeah, I think it would have extended World War One into like the early 20s. I think that's what would have happened.
Right, well, awesome retort.
But
I always feel like. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, all you.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that the most interesting part of that is that if it did make a more neutral ending to the World War One, it may have prevented World War Two, because a big chunk of the reason why World War Two happened is because the Treaty of Paris was so punitive toward Germany.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, honestly, that could have prevented a huge amount of loss of life if the Mexicans did enter the war on the side of the Axis. As weird as that ends up being.
It makes you wonder, though, like, if World War II didn't happen as a consequence. I mean, World War II, in a lot of ways, showed the world what humanity looked like at its worst, and I'd like to think that
you think World War One?
No, I'm talking World War II, because he has a point. If Mexico went to war with the U.S. wouldn't have been able to send troops. Let's say an ideal situation for the Central Powers. The U.S. wouldn't have been able to send troops over to Europe, and instead would have been distracted fighting a very decisively victorious American battle against Mexico. But what Beardy is saying is that, as a consequence, Germany would have ended World War I on a much stronger footing and not had to have conceded as much.
Yeah.
and therefore the German people wouldn't have felt as cheated, and the rise of Nazism may not have happened. But
Is that insane? Like, I finally finished that World War I podcast, and he was talking about how, like, at the end the Germans were just trading lives to get a better, like, position on the table when it comes to bartering. Like, okay, well, we have this city now, or we lost this. They wanted to have more, and the soldiers were pissed off because they're like, we just want to go home. And the guy was saying, like, World War II is more of like a good versus evil kind of war, while World War I was more like just different countries pushing and trying to get, a better, like, territory, more resources, and it wasn't as much economic, or I'm sorry, it was more economical than actual, like, genocide. And
see, now I would say though that, like, for example, Japan would have still eventually pushed for a larger Pacific Empire.
During World War I?
So
no, not in World War One. Japan was an allied nation. Actually, they fought on the side of the U.S. and France and Britain and Russia.
It's so bizarre.
Right. And that raises an interesting point, because if World War II, as we know it, didn't happen because of the Mexican invasion of the U.S., I think Draft's right that the Japanese Empire would have eventually attacked China and Korea and tried to annex them like they did.
But there
would have been a much larger international response against them, and
I gotta ask you a follow up on that.
Go ahead.
If, let's say, we're still in this alternate history where Mexico had invaded the U.S., right?
Yes.
And let's say it's 1931, as it was in our timeline, and Japan decides to invade Manchuria.
Okay.
Would America care? Would we have done anything? Would we have done anything about it? There's a chance
that we would not have cared.
I don't think we would have cared. I think we would have let them just march right through.
Because honestly, the way the rest of the world viewed China at the time is nothing but a resource pool.
Well, and in fact,
a place to exploit.
At the beginning of it, what was it? We didn't care. It was only when it started getting, into the massacres and whatever, into the late 30s, that Americans started volunteering for the Flying Tigers and that sort of stuff. But, like, yeah, I get the feeling like if Japan had, say, started their Pacific War in the early 30s instead, right, and really pushed to take over territories,
mm-hmm. And for
I wonder if they would have. I wonder if they still would have tried to take Hong Kong and the Philippines.
I guess the real question is if the U.S. never got involved in a land war in Europe at the time, we would have had no reason to cut the fuel supply that we were selling to Japan, which was the whole reason why Japan attacked us in the first place.
Well, we cut the fuel supply to them because they were being excessively aggressive, and they had allied themselves with Germany.
Right, but we weren't. There were, in this alternate history, there would have been no war with Germany at the time.
I mean, between 1939 and 1941, Japan was at war with Britain and France, and we weren't at war with Japan, but, Roosevelt and Churchill were,
sure.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of an interesting.
Oh, very much so.
I want to hear what you all have to say for your what ifs. That's my first one. What if? What's yours?
Okay. So, Draft or me?
You go ahead, Beardy.
Okay. Now, this one is probably not as interesting, but here we go. What if George Washington was never born?
Ooh, I like that one. I need to brush up on my Revolutionary War history. I really do. And I
just had a thought.
What? Go on.
Okay, so my immediate thought process on this is, what would the revolution would have looked like without Washington? Because Washington didn't really become a big force in the revolution until it had already started. He was a landed gentry from Virginia. He was a well-known figure there, but I think the revolution would have started with or without him.
Right. Now, he did two important things during his life. The first one is he was one of the ranking officers in the war against the French and Indians.
Well, he was like a colonel, but it was mostly a surveying role. He did fight a battle against the French, though. At oh shoot, I can't remember the name of it. Fort something.
So then, so in this alternate timeline, he was never there, and he was also never, in the American Revolution.
Well, when he was there, though, he had basically a negligible effect on the French-Indian War. Like, he wasn't exactly an important part of that. So I don't think that would have made much of a difference. but my immediate thought process was, if Washington wasn't there at the beginning of the revolution, the country needed a face or a leader to turn to, and it would have been a military person. Do you know who I think it would have been? And I think Beardy might have.
I know exactly.
Can I guess before you do? Because I might get it right.
Okay, because if Beardy is thinking who I am, he's probably laughing on the inside. Saber, you take a stab.
I want to say Andrew Jackson.
No, Andrew Jackson was too young. He wasn't. I think he was born in 1787, so he wasn't around yet. Okay. Beardy, I want to know who you're
sure.
guessing.
I'm pretty sure it would have been Benedict Arnold.
That's exactly who I was thinking.
Really? He take over George's spot?
Yeah, he would have.
Because I was told that like Benedict Arnold wasn't like that horrible of a guy. Like he actually felt like remorseful at the end.
He was a ridiculously fervent patriot up until he felt like he wasn't getting enough credit for it. And now,
I love that.
In all seriousness, and he was also a brilliant commander who had a lot of loyal followers.
And he's a good actor too.
He was, well, that's debatable, but he, I think because he was the most successful, he was in a large part responsible for the victory at Saratoga, which in 1779, which convinced France to ally itself with the U.S. And I think he would have been a capable commander, and not only that, he had a habit of, throwing himself into a battle full-fledged. And anyway, I think if Washington wasn't there to steal some of the limelight, he would have gotten it. That would have made him happy, and I think he would have fought even harder for the Patriot cause. And yeah, I think he would have been the replacement. He wouldn't have turned on America. Isn't that crazy?
That would be crazy.
And that's actually exactly what I was going to go with.
He's kind of the obvious choice there, because he was early on ridiculously good at what he did, and then really in the end it was his vanity that got the better of him. And in a lot of ways, Washington was a very vain person.
Sure. And if Washington wasn't there, then Benedict Arnold would have been the one in that limelight, and he would have been, the quote father of the nation.
Yep, and he would have loved it, and he would have never have wanted to.
And I guess the further question is, Washington stepped down after 2 terms. Do you think Benedict Arnold would have?
You think if he got elected president?
Right.
I don't know that the Constitution would have ended up the same.
But he would have even won the war.
I think he would have won the war if he could have convinced France to join in, but I don't think that would have been a problem for him. I think that they would have won the war, and I think they would have the Articles of Confederation, and I think the Articles of Confederation would fail.
Fair enough.
But then the question is, if they did a constitutional convention, because Washington did have a heavy hand or a very imposing role in the development of the Constitution. Basically, they built the presidency around what they thought he should be. Like, they built the idea of a president with Washington in mind. And if he's not there, and they're thinking Arnold instead, there were people, at the Constitutional Convention who wanted to create effectively a constitutional monarchy. Mm-hmm. And I think Arnold was even more vain than Washington was, and he would have supported that.
So you think if in this alternate timeline we would currently have a king something Arnold?
I think they would have stuck with the Republican model, but I think they would have, and because the founding fathers were all about like the Roman way of doing things, and I think they would have named him like consul or consul for life or something like that.
Right. They were heavily Roman themed.
Very much so.
I can see
or
that
dictator, like in the classical sense.
Sure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's my first one. What do you got, Draft?
Yeah, what's yours, Draft?
Okay, I'll go to, I don't know, do you guys want like a really... So I tried to think of ones that most people wouldn't think of, but would have had massive global impact.
Just start at the top of your list.
And, all right, Beardy, I get the feeling you will catch this. I'm going to have to explain this one, but it's worth asking.
I want to hear it.
What if Empress Zoe married Charlemagne?
Oh, yeah, explain.
Okay. Beardy, do you know what I'm talking about?
Sadly, no.
This is an obscure footnote of
Charlemagne
history.
is not that intense.
Well, Charlemagne. Okay, so here's the setting. It's the year 800. All right, Charlemagne is king of the Franks. He has basically conquered all of France and most of Germany and all of northern Italy over the course of several wars with both his family members and then also other royal relations. So he's effectively created a giant chunk of Western Europe that is his kingdom. At the same time, on the other side of the Mediterranean is the remnant of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and the husband of Empress Zoe, and I think his name was Constantine the Sixth. I could be wrong. Oh, no, that was her son. Doesn't matter. He's dead. So in the Byzantine system, the empress basically takes control until the next emperor is in charge. So you have the eastern half of the Roman Empire, which at that time included Greece, Turkey, and southern Italy, Venice, bunch of other areas. The eastern half of the Roman Empire, still there, is being run by a woman. So Charlemagne in 800, and actually specifically on Christmas Day 800, is crowned Holy Roman Emperor. Well, Roman Emperor, really, by the Pope, who didn't recognize Empress Zoe as the Roman Emperor because she was a woman. And so as a result, he went with the next best thing and crowned a French king as Emperor of the Romans. Now, right now, this all sounds kind of obscure, but I'm getting to why this is a cool question. Right now, when you think of a Roman emperor, you think of like a classical guy in a toga, and he's sitting in Rome, and he's got the Senate around, whatever, right? But in the Middle Ages, the title Emperor of the Romans belonged to the Byzantines. It was a huge deal that this Pope had named a French king Emperor of the Romans when they already had a Roman empress in Constantinople. So this pissed off a lot of Greeks, and the Byzantine Empire was a big deal in the 800s. But within a year or two, the diplomats got to work. And this is a true story. Offers were exchanged, and there was a plan enacted to have Empress Zoe marry Emperor Charlemagne. So think about that. You basically have the two halves of the Roman Empire that could have joined in the year 800.
Yeah, like a reuniting of the Roman Empire,
It would have been
rekindling the classical age.
Now, also, like Beardy, I think you know like Charlemagne's history here. Charlemagne was a huge force in reviving Western European culture. He copied as much Roman stuff as he could. He brought in tons of scholars and artists and engineers, and like there was a distinct Carolingian Renaissance, like art.
You can really simplify it and say he was really the first guy to come in after the destruction and really start to rebuild.
It wasn't just rebuilding; like
he was like the stopgap. He was what finally stopped the slide into barbarism.
Pretty much, he in a lot of ways restored a lot of what the Roman Empire had been, and for that matter, had taken over a lot of territory that the western part of the empire was. So there was, and this is true, an attempt made to have Zoe marry Charlemagne, which would have made Charlemagne emperor over both halves of the former Roman Empire. And let's say they had a kid. That kid would be a Roman emperor of almost the entire Mediterranean with a combined, military force that would have been insane. Furthermore, can you imagine if Charlemagne had the resources of the Byzantine capital at his hand? Like if Charlemagne was in control of Constantinople.
Right, got a hold of the Byzantine treasury. Yeah.
He would have done unbelievable things. He wanted to restore the Roman Empire, and he would have made full use of all of the all of the resources, whatever. So why is this a decent question? Because I think it would have completely changed world history. But beyond that, it just to clarify, the reason it didn't happen was because one of Zoe's eunuchs actually intercepted some of the messages and spread some I can't remember the exact way it worked, but basically spread some misinformation and changed Zoe's mind on the deal. But it was so close to happening, it's crazy. Like, it was just a weird confluence of history. Anyway.
Well, since you have thoroughly covered that, I'm not sure what more I can add.
Neither can I.
No, the idea is, okay, imagine you have the Roman Empire in the year 800. Like, the Dark Ages aren't happening, and effectively, the Renaissance isn't necessary 800 years later because you already have one going on.
Sure.
Like, where do you think the world would be? Do you think we'd be 1,000 years more advanced?
I think we would probably be more advanced. Yeah. I spent that whole time drinking, by the way, so I'm
That's a good idea.
We would definitely be more advanced, barring some other crazy disaster that spread up from that we can't possibly foresee. But it's safe to say that we might be 100 to 200 years past where we are now, technologically speaking, if things went smoothly.
The only thing I can think getting in the way of it was that by the time this had happened, European cultures had really distinguished like themselves. So the Spanish were more Spanish, you know. And also there was a very powerful caliphate in northern Africa and the Middle East that would have been, you know, still at war often with the Romans. But the French were distinguished from the Italians at that point. Whereas during the Roman Empire, if you spoke basically vulgar Latin, street Latin, you could get around anywhere, and yeah.
And who's to say that, you know, Latin at that point was still falling out of favor?
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say, though, if that marriage wouldn't have caused a rekindling of Latin culture? So it might have stopped or even reversed that trend.
It would have been fascinating. The other thing it might have done is helped reverse the schism in the Catholic Church.
Right. You know, there might have still been one dominant church in the year 2015.
Pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so it's one of those obscure things that would have completely changed the world. All right.
Any final thoughts on that one, Saber?
No, you all covered it completely.
Okay.
Saber's like,
I don't know the subject well enough.
Okay,
let's Saber, go look up Charlemagne. He was basically one punch man in the Middle Ages.
Nice.
Let's all take a long drink, and then Saber, start with your second question.
I'm trying to pick which one I want to drink or drink. Which one I want to read here. See, I feel bad because I have a few World War II ones that I feel like they're kind of cop-outs. Oh! All right. This is the one I was thinking about, and you tell me. So during the Bay of Pigs with Cuban Missile Crisis, what would have happened if the Russian commander on the submarine fired off the missile?
Oh, jeez. Well,
I know and for context, he was given an order to fire off a nuclear missile, and he refused.
Yeah, I heard about this.
So what would have happened if he decided, okay, I'll follow orders, and he fired the missile?
Short answer, extinction.
You think that would have been it?
I think if anyone at that era fired a nuke at either superpower, it would have ended in total retaliation.
Do you think China and those other countries would have gotten involved? Because when we had those nukes pointed at the Soviet Union, we did not have them pointed at Beijing.
Right. The question is, of course, if we nuked Russia and the U.S. so thoroughly as we intended, and both countries were wiped off the face of the earth, would the fallout from that, you know, both figurative and literal, would that have ended the rest of the world?
I don't think so. I think it would have severely damaged it. But I think that, you know, let's say there was a nuclear winter, it would have only lasted a few years. It would have cleared, and by the 60s, there was enough stored food and technology out there that large pockets of populations would have survived. And then when it started to clear, they would have started to expand again.
I think it would have been probably South America and Australia and Africa would have been in the best positions. Because I think North America and Asia, at least the Russian part of it, would have been annihilated. I think China would have gotten a lot of the fallout from Russia, and they probably would have been severely damaged. And same with Europe. They would have hit. They might have even been hit directly by some Russian nukes.
Well, here's another thing to keep in mind is that like we're talking the '60s here. We're not talking about like the late '70s, '80s, where the nukes were much more powerful and had much more range. We would have been attacking cities. They would have been attacking cities. They wouldn't just be bombing the countryside. So I think the urban areas would have been hit. But I think, like, for example, let's say neither side attacked China. I think China would have survived it. You know,
Unscathed?
no, definitely not unscathed, especially considering the climate, the political climate of the time. But you know, I get the feeling that a lot of people would have
Died.
well, a lot of people would have died for sure. But I don't think it would have been the absolute extinction that people talk about, because when we talk about that, we're talking more like the late part of the Cold War power capabilities. You know, in the '60s, we only had a few ICBMs. By the '80s, we had thousands. So, yeah.
Thank you for answering that one. I felt like that was pretty simple though, but it's something worth bringing up because I feel like that guy, and I feel awful because I should know his name, but the Russian commander who said no, like, is a true hero because he saved countless lives that day.
Bridging onto that, there's a story of a Russian silo commander who was in a very similar situation.
Yeah,
where,
I heard about this.
Yeah, he received a signal where his computer told him that the Allies had attacked, and they were telling him that there were multiple nukes inbound to Russia, and that it was his job, it was protocol to respond by firing everything he had back at the U.S.
Oh, sheesh.
So he's looking at his readout, and he basically asked to double check the information to confirm it. Comes back, it verified, said it was confirmed.
Dang. Mm-hmm. Was it okay? Like computer errors?
It was all computer errors.
What?
But he was sitting in, underground in a silo with all the information in front of him was saying the U.S. was attacking, and he did not fire back.
It gets crazier though too, because part of it was that he had considered calling up his regional commander to double check, but he didn't want the regional commander to order him to fire anyway, even if, like, for whatever reason. So he was thinking of calling up another silo too to see if the other computers were verifying it, but he didn't want to let other people know in case they then ordered him to do it and he didn't, and then he got in trouble for it. Right. So he actually kept it as a secret for a couple decades.
Now there was another situation that happened in the U.S. that was kind of similar, where the U.S. was transporting a nuclear weapon by plane, and we accidentally dropped it on U.S. soil, and it didn't blow up.
Yep, in South Carolina.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing.
Yep, we also accidentally nuked Spain. Yeah, we accidentally nuked Spain too, but it didn't explode. But I think like the final arming system had already engaged, so it was about to. Just crazy.
All right, what's yours, Beardy?
Question 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a pretty chewy one. You ready?
Oh boy.
What if the new world, the people of the new world, were not susceptible to the germs of the old world?
Oh boy.
Whoa! So what if the people of the new world were not Okay, so that means.
So you're saying taking the.
Let me give you some background. The Spanish and Portuguese, in sort of the first initial invasions of the New World, sent over very small, like Cortez had a very small complement of Spaniards with him, but he was able to conquer huge amounts of people and territory because of advanced technologies, superstitions of the natives, and the fact that every time he met with a group of people, roughly 90% of them would die from disease. So 9 out of 10 people would be killed, and a lot of these were people that never even met people from the old world. They would never meet whites. The people that met the whites would go back to their villages and spread the diseases around, and then they would spread, and they would spread, and they would spread. So you would have this cascade of deaths where they really thinned out about 9/10 of the New World population-wise, at least in Central America.
It was in North America too.
Yeah, and it hit everywhere. I mean, and a lot of people that were dying from it again, never even met whites. It was the fact that people that they had met whites. And it just traveled through this chain, and it killed about 90% of the New World.
Yeah, there are estimates that put the population of North and South America before Columbus's arrival at like 25 million people,
Yeah,
which is a
a lot of the
ton.
estimates. Yeah, a lot of the estimates say that when Cortez landed in the New World, the most heavily populated city on Earth at the time was Tenochtitlan.
Yeah,
Wait, one more time. So, what city was the
Sure.
most populated one?
Tenochtitlan,
Where's
the
that?
capital of the Aztec Empire.
Whoa, that was the biggest city.
it was something like 250,000 people there.
At the time.
And what year? Just to reiterate, what year was that?
1519.
Wow.
Yeah, and they said at the time that was the largest city on Earth.
Yep.
So
No, it wasn't the largest city ever though, because at the peak of the Roman Empire, Rome itself was I think 2 million. But
and the Chinese had huge cities too.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So to reiterate, the question was, what if the people of the New World were not susceptible to Old World germs?
They still would be susceptible to the technology. So it means that the conquistadors would have, Spain would have had to devote a lot more military resources than they did in our history. But yeah, because if you think about the conquistadors, Cortez and his crew was a couple hundred people at most,
Right.
and he just basically took over a multi-million person empire with a couple hundred people.
Did Cortez ever make it back alive?
Back alive?
To Spain?
Yeah, I think he did.
Did he live a good life for the rest of his life, or did he ever have some kind of what goes around comes around, or what?
He was viceroy of New Spain, and so he basically.
Viceroy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was.
He
lived a life of luxury. I'm pretty sure he made it out scot-free.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's actually a really interesting story about Cortez that I could relate right now, but
please do.
that is not the topic.
Oh.
Unless you really
you tease.
Oh, fine. What happened with Cortez and Montezuma was really kind of amazing.
Yeah.
He shows up with his couple hundred people, and of course they think he's like the reincarnation of Quetzalcoatl. Which is an Aztec god that was foretold to come from the east, and that the messengers of Quetzalcoatl would be people who were basically pale, white-skinned people.
Mm-hmm.
So of course it fell into the superstition that Cortez and his guys, were Quetzalcoatl's messengers. So they figured he was a god, and they escorted him to Tenochtitlan to meet their emperor. At the time, it was Montezuma. Mm-hmm. So the Spaniards had an interesting practice at the time where they would convert people forcibly to Catholicism. That was kind of their shtick. And they would have these mass conversions where they would round up groups of natives. They would read Latin over them to convert them to Catholicism. Then they would kill them.
Yeah.
So that way that their souls could go to God. Yeah, that's exactly what they did. So, anyway, he gets to Montezuma, and he starts to talk to Montezuma through interpreters. And they're trying to convince him to join the Spanish Empire. And what's amazing about that is it almost actually happened. The conversation went something to the tune of, he was explaining Catholicism to Montezuma, and Montezuma was sort of a step ahead of him in a little bit. He's explaining to him, he's like, oh, well, in Catholicism, well, sorry, I'll take a step back. First of all, in the Aztec religion, Montezuma is considered a living god. That was his status in their society.
Yep.
So Montezuma is trying to understand Catholicism because Cortez is preaching Catholicism. He has his priests there who are converting people, and Montezuma is trying to understand it. So Cortez is trying to explain the Trinity, and he's trying to explain the divinity of Jesus, and the duality of Jesus being both mortal and immortal. And he explains to him that what's the word? The Catholic term for transubstantiation.
There we go.
He's trying to explain to him the concept of transubstantiation, which in Catholicism is the idea that when you eat a wafer during communion, that wafer and that wine is literally turned into the blood and body of Jesus. Okay?
Yeah.
That's Catholic doctrine, always has been, always will be. So he's trying to explain to them that as part of worshiping Jesus, they are literally consuming his body. And of course, in their culture, Jesus is a god. So Montezuma looks at it and sees that this person and his entire religion is based around eating their gods. And again, to remind you, Montezuma in his religion is a god.
Yeah.
So he basically sees this, and he's like, well, I understand where you're coming from, but is this like a figurative... He actually asks this. He's like, is this like a figurative eating of his flesh and blood as a symbol of worship? And Cortez is like, no. We're literally eating his body and blood. And Cortez is like, holy shit, these people are crazy. And if only Cortez had said that it was figurative, then the Aztecs very well could have joined the Spanish Empire as a part of their nation.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have worked out that way. I mean, like, there's multiple examples. For example, the Tlaxcoco people, who were constantly at war with the Aztecs, also a Mesoamerican tribe, were allies with the Spanish right away. The Spanish showed up, they allied themselves right away, and fought against the Aztecs with them, and still got screwed over. In what was it, Peru, a few years later, the Incas, there were a few upstart Incan emperors who allied themselves with the Spanish in their civil wars. The Spanish still screwed them over. I don't think it would have been like a peaceable, like, suddenly the Aztecs are happy friends with the Spanish. It wouldn't have worked out that way. Just saying.
All right, Jeff. Well, what's yours then?
Okay.
And by the way, I think to save time, we should do 3 each.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, he's like, and by the way, no more medieval crap that.
No, I like. I have a very deep respect for you and Beardy. What are you laughing at? I'm being honest. I love how you guys are so knowledgeable, and I get to learn so much. Like, it's funny because in my circle of family and friends here in Georgia, I'm the historian. But when I sit with you guys, I'm like, damn, I know nothing. But I get to learn a lot, which is great. So I love that.
No, it's all good. Oh man. Which one should I go with?
I have 2 more good ones. One bad one.
I have 4 more, and 3 of them are... one of them is pretty specific. I'm just going to go with this one. What if John Wilkes Booth had missed? It wouldn't have happened, but...
if he would have missed and...
like Lincoln had lived.
Okay. Interesting. I feel like it wouldn't have changed history too much. Because wasn't the war pretty much over at that point, though?
The war was over. In fact, it had ended just days before.
Okay.
And set the scene here. Lincoln is attending a play called My American Cousin at Ford's Theater in D.C. with his wife. John Wilkes Booth, before his act, was actually known as a very good actor. He was from a family of good actors.
I heard that his brother did something that was like, God, what was it? He saved Abraham Lincoln's brother or friend or something like that?
Okay. His brother, I think Edward Booth, I don't remember his real name, I think it's Edward though, saved Robert Todd Lincoln from being run over by a train.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah. Well, and his brother and his family was completely ashamed of him. But this would be akin to, like, I don't know. This would be akin to, like, Stephen Baldwin assassinating the president and Alec Baldwin having to pay the price later. But anyway, because he was a celebrity in the mid 19th century. So they're in the middle of the play. during I think like the third act or something, John Wilkes Booth made his way up to the presidential, viewing box or whatever. And at the time, there was not really much of a guard, and he pulled out a Derringer, I think, and shot Lincoln point blank in the head. And then he jumped off the balcony, broke his leg, yelled out "Sic Semper Tyrannis," which means so it always goes with tyrants. Ran out the door, and then a couple days later was found and killed.
Yeah. We could do a whole episode on the Lincoln assassination and the corresponding other attempted assassinations that took place at the same time.
There is a lot of crazy, because they tried
a lot of crazy stuff with that. There was a whole conspiracy that they don't teach in public schools.
They were trying to take out almost the entirety of the U.S. cabinet.
And what's amazing is, based on the evidence at the time, you can pretty much figure out who was behind the whole thing, and they never got found out in their lifetime.
Yeah. Kind of crazy. Anyway.
But we can do a whole episode on that, so I'm not going to.
So let's say John Wilkes Booth pulls the trigger, but the gun misfires, and he tries again. It doesn't work. He runs off.
Anyway.
Lincoln survives. So what happens if Lincoln is alive? It's 1865. He's 1 year into his presidency. How is the world different?
I think that after Lincoln was assassinated, his vice president was more punitive than Lincoln would have been.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the alternate timeline would have been that the South was treated with more respect and more like kid gloves, I guess, in a way to put it, so that they might have not had quite as much resentment after the fact. Maybe things would have been made right a little bit faster, and maybe the social divide between the North and the South wouldn't have been as bad. Maybe it would have advanced us a decade or two in relations between the North and South over where we're at now.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Saber, do you have any theories?
And the theory, and this is for exactly if he would have survived the assassination.
Mm-hmm.
I think Abraham Lincoln would have continued just continue on a streak of a strong Union, maybe reindoctrinating the South back into the Union. I don't think things would have changed much in the long run. I think he would have just ran his course. I don't know what America's state was like after his assassination. People were pissed off and more because Lincoln was Republican, right?
Yeah. Well, until 1864, and then he ran his National Constitution Party, right?
Oh, I have a quick question for y'all.
That's correct. Yeah.
I was talking to some coworkers about this. Has a third party in the U.S. has ever won an election?
Yeah, Lincoln won it in 1864 with the National Constitution Party.
How about that?
No, I mean after the Civil War, it basically boiled down to. Are you shuffling cards? What's going on over there?
Sorry. No.
Also, I'm trying to open a bottle of Angry Orchard here, so there's probably going to be a cork sound here.
Do it.
There it is.
Woohoo!
Ooh, smells good.
Quite. Oh, I spilled my beer. That was close.
I've got that plastic wrap everywhere on my new computer, and I'm removing it.
No,
that's so satisfying.
I shouldn't be doing that on a podcast. Sorry.
It's okay. Don't you worry about it.
It's okay.
I've had a lot to drink.
Good. Drink more. I think. Okay. So people, I think he would have. When I was framing this question, my thought was, okay, what would Lincoln's legacy be? Because of the assassination, he became immensely more popular than he ever was during his presidency. He became effectively like this American icon. The late 19th century,
and he still is.
Well, he still is, but
because of his assassination.
Yeah, he was just so beloved, and there were prints made of him, and there were songs written about him, and all of anybody who ever worked with him in politics ended up basically getting promotions down the line because they could just say, "Hey, I was on Lincoln's staff," or "Hey, I was a general in his army."
I heard he was a very good wrestler too.
Would surprise me. He was a tall guy, but that being
Like he
said,
actually is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
that I don't know. Yeah. So, couple of thoughts came to mind with this. One, if he had lived, let's say he filled out his term, so he would have finished his term in 1868. Would he have gone for a third term? And I don't know, because the tradition at that time in the Constitution didn't have a limit on presidential terms, so the tradition was to keep it to only two, out of respect for George Washington.
No kidding, that wasn't a law.
It wasn't a law until
after FDR.
Yeah, because
it was FDR who because I know he had 4 terms,
FDR
right?
served 4 friggin' terms,
and it was out of respect, not out of law. That's amazing. I had no idea.
So FDR stuck in the office because he was like, "Well, we're in a war. I don't want to leave until we get our job done."
Do y'all feel like that was the right choice?
Yeah, he was. Really
FDR was a badass. He could do whatever he wanted in my book.
He only did one thing really ridiculously wrong, and that was the Japanese internment. But
yeah, which is very topical right now with what Trump is doing.
Yeah, well, Trump is an ass.
Dude, he's an idiot.
I'd
vote for Hillary. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so yeah,
I want to have a current events podcast. I'd be happy to join you.
I almost put Trump in this. I almost actually when we were talking about like I was sending Saber a message like what should it be about. I almost suggested something like comparing Trump to Hitler, and I'm like, no, everybody's doing that.
Yeah, that's too on the nose.
It's Godwin's law. Yeah. So I think that Lincoln may have run for a third term.
Possible.
I think so.
Especially if he had been able to enact his plans for the Reconstruction, because he, like Beardy mentioned, Lincoln was a lot more conciliatory to the South. He wanted to, use soft gloves or whatever, and not be as punitive. He wanted to rebuild the South in a way with dignity or whatever. And I think part of that process. Well, he also though did want to, enfranchise African Americans because a lot of them had just recently gained citizenship. So I think it would have been interesting because if he was pursuing Reconstruction like that, we may have seen more Democrats win presidencies later in the 19th century, and we may have seen social reform sooner than Roosevelt, because in the end it would have been very different. That's all. I think in the end the U.S. would have been a very different country because...
Well, I mean, it was the Civil Rights Bill that kind of switched the political parties around anyway.
It was, yeah. But it makes me wonder also, though, on the other end, was his assassination like a spurring movement to promote civil rights? Like, by having him... Because he was assassinated, did it polarize the country in a way to further social
since he was a martyr, would that have advanced the cause more?
Yeah. Exactly.
Certainly possible.
Well,
it's hard to call it. It's hard to call it.
Hard to call it.
I have my final question, by the way.
Okay.
I'm proud of this one. So, this one is both historical and and definitely in the realm of science fiction and science. So, let's say the Apollo missions arrive to the moon, and they find a tunnel underground, and they find alien life.
My God.
Okay. What if humanity discovered life on the moon, or let's say one of the Mars rovers found life on Mars? Well, let's go with that one.
Different questions, but we can go with either.
Let's go with the rover. Let's go with the rover.
That's not really a historical question as much as it is like a philosophical.
I know it's kind of different.
That's
I'm just saying, what if humanity found life on Mars when the rovers were there?
What if humanity found a tunnel under Mars that led to One Punch Man?
Oh, only killing you prey.
So, the question is, really, honestly, that could happen today. So,
yes,
there's really no historical aspect to that. So I can answer it pretty much as if it happened tomorrow. And that would be, there would be a massive shitstorm on Earth.
Yes, there would be.
I think people would completely freak out. At least a good majority of the people would freak out. A lot of old held beliefs would be called into question.
Yeah, what do you all think? Do you feel like religion would be officially thrown out the window if that happened?
Question.
A lot of
Answer.
religions would either have to adopt it, like co-opt the fact that there's extraterrestrial life, or they would be, thrown out.
Question. Is the life that has been discovered intelligent, or evidence of intelligence, or are we just talking like microbial life?
No.
here?
We're talking about, like, let's say they discovered like the equivalent of a extraterrestrial Neanderthal. I know it sounds really weird, but just
Aw.
go with me on this one.
Okay.
How endearing! Aw.
No, that was more of a disappointed awe.
I'm sorry. And if it was intelligent life, then it'd be a very like wow. What?
Because then I had a follow-up question if it was intelligent.
Let's do both.
Sure.
If it's microbial life, nobody would care.
Nobody
I
would
think
care.
what people would care, but
It'd be a huge deal, but no one would care.
our
It
generation wouldn't care.
change anything.
Old people would throw a fit. Other old people would say that it must be a conspiracy or came from Earth somehow. That would be the biggest one.
Yeah.
If it wasn't that, then let's say like it conclusively was proven, and it was proven that it couldn't possibly be from Earth, then most religions would just adapt and say, "Oh, well, it's just part of, God's master plan, whatever." If it was intelligent, though, that'd be different.
That would turn the world upside down.
Yeah. My follow-up to the if they were intelligent question is, could you have sex with them?
Oh, Jesus.
One can only hope.
Because I think that's humankind's destiny is to go out
No,
into
that's Captain James T. Kirk's
go out
destiny.
into space and to have sex with as many
Those
things.
Orion girls, I tell you what.
But let's go back to, so let's say we did discover the rover is going through and it goes to a tunnel or a cave and turns its lights on and just sees these humanoid kind, 2 arms, 2 legs creatures that are like in the cave looking out at the rover. And they're like this thing.
Everyone would think they were from Earth. They would think that immediately because it's too similar to humans.
Well, they're not humans. Let's say they have like scaly skin and have like air sacs on their back or something like that. They're obviously not humans. What I'm getting
They still
at.
would think it's from Earth because we're conceited here. So what you would have to do is prove conclusively they weren't from Earth.
Let's say they weren't from Earth.
But
All
then
right.
I would have to ask Draft is, can anything be proven conclusively in this day and age without a large number of people simply denying it flatly?
No. The answer is no.
I mean, look at our current situation, and you'll realize that nothing, no matter how much science is behind it, can ever be proven without having a large number of people shouting it down.
For example, global warming,
Yeah.
or evolution, or I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Those are the two big ones.
The superiority of waffles. Look,
Exactly.
Whoa.
Whoa. You're not a pancake lover, are you?
If the question was waffles and pancakes, the answer is there is no question. The answer is pancakes.
Oh,
oh
my God. I was
jeez,
hoping you'd be a good
we thought this was
co-host.
going to work
Oh,
out.
oh!
Yeah.
Pancakes, my friends.
Why?
Pancakes.
No, not why. Let's get back to the question at hand. So okay.
So
let's say
how
the
would
scientific community all is consensus. We've proven they're not from Earth. They're crazy aliens living in a cave on the moon because apparently that's where they live.
Mars.
We would want to ask them questions. Actually, I think there would have been a large contingent of people yelling that we should leave them alone because we don't want to.
Interrupt.
We
them.
Yeah, we don't want actually this is something too. There's a movement among scientists that say we shouldn't colonize Mars because if there is nascent life on Mars, we might kill it by accident.
No,
Shout
we
out-
should go up. We should
Shout
go
out
there.
to Paleo and shout out to Rosie. You're both correct. Thank you.
No, they're wrong.
Stop with the pancakes, okay? You're waffling on the issues.
I think right now it's a money thing about going to Mars. It's definitely a money thing. We could go there tomorrow if we wanted to.
It would cost us.
Yeah, it would cost us a lot.
It would cost us 1/10 the amount of money Russia spent on the 2014 Olympics
Are you
to
kidding me?
put a man on Mars. Yeah,
I hate this.
Yeah. No, we don't take science.
we don't take it very seriously.
Why don't we take it seriously? So, would we go there? Do you think if we found there was life there, we'd be like, okay, we gotta go right now.
If we found there was life there,
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'd have a man on Mars within 5 years.
I don't think so. I think we'd send probes. I think we send lots of probes. We wouldn't want to infect it. We would be afraid of destroying something else. I think the scientific community would be a little too conservative there. But I do think that, let's say that there's interaction, whatever, there's intelligent life, they already know we're there, it's too late, we stumble across them. I think that we would want to ask it questions, but in the end, yeah, I mean, it's so contingent on where it's from and what level of intelligence it has, and I don't know. There's too many questions. It's too weird.
Well, there's
right.
mine then. Okay, Beers, what's yours?
Okay, so this is my last one then?
Yes.
Okay, so I have two that I like. So I'm going to read them both.
Do both.
And I want you guys to pick which one you want to answer.
There we go.
Why do both?
Okay. What if Germany ended World War II with a peace deal holding on to all of Europe's landmass?
Oh yeah, I've heard of this one.
Ooh,
So
I like this one.
So if they ended World War II holding on to France as their western border and about half of modern-day Ukraine on their eastern border.
Question.
So what you're
Is-
talking
Ended
about?
World War II with a peace instead of
Is the U.S. involved? Is
So-
the Pearl Harbor attack?
So like
Or-
D-Day never happened, but
The Pearl Harbor happened.
Hold on. Are we talking about the Himmler plan? I think it's Himmler. What's his name? The guy who parachuted into England to try and negotiate peace and got captured and thrown in the Tower of London. You know who I'm talking about?
Wait, what?
Go ahead and tell him.
It's Himmler, right?
Oh, Himmler was. Are you talking
Or-
about Heydrich Himmler? Because
No,
Heydrich Himmler was one of the up and ups in the Nazi Party.
well, so was this guy. What's his name? I can't remember. Oh my God, this is-
The other hypotheticals.
Rudolf Hess. His name is Rudolf Hess.
S.
Rudolf Hess in 1940 really wanted to conclude peace with Britain before Germany got screwed. Without Hitler's permission and without the permission of any of the other upper-ups in the German government. And this is a guy who was like Vice Fuhrer. He was like way up there. He got himself into England by parachuting in, completely failed at it. Like, landed in a farmer's field who within 5 minutes had a gun pointed at him. And
Wow.
he failed at it miserably. And he was trying to go to negotiate with Britain to conclude a peace treaty, just like what Beardy is talking about here, where Germany would basically stop fighting with Britain. But in 1940, Germany was planning an invasion of Britain called Operation Sea Lion, which never happened, but yeah.
So that's hypothetical, possible hypothetical one.
And so
Possible
it's a year before Pearl Harbor, so the U.S. wasn't at war yet.
So possible hypothetical number 2 was the U.S. never successfully develops a nuclear bomb,
Ooh.
and therefore nuclear technology was never discovered.
Oh, and that's before the invasion of Japan, then, or the potential.
Right, so at that point, we are already embroiled in World War II. We do not create nuclear weapons. So those are the two hypotheticals.
I want to do both. So let's tackle the second one first, because I feel like if that would have been the case, like they seem pretty full force. We're going to invade Japan anyway. Like, it's almost the nuclear bomb was like, oh, what a pleasant surprise. We don't have to go now.
No, we had a plan. And it was called like Operation Overlord.
They had estimated 2 million casualties on the U.S. side.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
With something like 10
How many men
million
were marching
trapped.
in there?
They were pulling people, this is true, already pulling people from Germany
Right.
and Europe and
Yeah.
shipping them
They're-
to the
they were
Pacific.
shipping everyone from the Western theater that didn't have enough
Dude,
points.
could you imagine that being like, oh my god, I was on Omaha Beach, we invaded Normandy, we got to Berlin, I'm done with my mission. Oh, what? I'm
Yeah.
going to Japan next?
Well, Saber, what's interesting is the U.S. Army actually had a system for that. They created a point system that for every battle a soldier fought in, they would earn a number of points based on how dangerous and decisive the battle was. And if a soldier had enough points at the end of the Western theater, they could have gotten discharged. If you did not have enough points,
What?
they put you on a boat and sent you to Japan.
That's
The U.S. Army
insanity.
Air Force did the same sort of thing with air missions.
That's insanity. What?
But
what,
no, but
what,
they had
what
they had
incentive.
they had a full-fledged plan to invade Japan, and they had a timetable of estimated successes and whatever, they were expecting the war to extend past 1947. They thought it was going to go at least a 2-3 year.
Because they were convinced that the Japanese people would fight for every square foot.
Because they had run into that in Okinawa, and Okinawa, 50,000 Americans died.
Yeah.
Iwo Jima, which is a little volcanic, turd in the middle of the Pacific, but Japan considered it part of their territory, like core territory. They had to fight over it for months. Yep,
over a nothing land.
They intended on throwing in every available troop they had.
Yeah, and they're actually counting on all of the Japanese citizenry to fight. Every single man, woman, and child to fight the U.S. Army.
Japanese citizens were being trained on how to use bamboo knives to defend themselves.
Do you think they would have been like they wouldn't have given up? Like,
I think some of them would have, but I think a lot of them wouldn't have. And I think it would have been insanely devastating. This is okay. I know I have to do this in every podcast. Beardy, get a drink ready.
Oh, right here, buddy. Go ahead.
So I'm a debate coach.
Drinking.
There we go. And one of the classic debate topics is whether or not nuking Japan was the right idea.
Well, go on. I want to hear this.
Because on the one side, there's the massive human death toll of the nuclear bombs and, the radioactive fallout, the destruction of cultural history. On the other side, there's Saber typing loudly.
I'm sorry.
On the other side, there's the idea of how many people were, how many lives were saved. And while it's not popular for me to say this, I think dropping the bombs was the right decision.
Agreed.
Because we saved millions of lives doing that.
Well, they attacked us first, okay? That's war. Well, that's and second off, you have got to protect your soldiers, and if these enemies are not going to stand down and you have a distinct advantage, then by all means, drop the bomb. Make them shocked to death.
We'll say, to be fair, you could use that same exact logic to justify gas weaponry or bioweapons. So it's just just because you have an advantage doesn't mean you should use it in a war.
But at some point, I mean, the gas bombs though, like I get it, like those are horrible weapons. I know in World War One, like that was like a disgusting like way to go, and it's almost like, is this too inhumane for war? Because humans have gotten so damn good at killing each other.
And I think Borg in the chat just raised a good point that it's not so much that we dropped the bombs that was the problem. Is that where we dropped the bombs that was the problem.
Well. Okay, so you got to consider the context. Truman and his advisors, the first successful bomb test, the Trinity test, was on July 15th, and they were ready with a second bomb by the beginning of August. There were a lot of people who said that what we should have done and what they really wanted us to do was to set off the bomb on like a platform in the middle of the Pacific where the Japanese could see. Like, put it somewhere near Tokyo where it wouldn't blow up Tokyo, but they could see the bomb and as a demonstration and scare them into submission that way. And it was almost roundly rejected as a concept because they realized, and I think they were right, that raw human death toll would scare them into submission. In the end, those bombs were designed to scare Japan into quitting. Like, basically shock them. Well, it did. It had to shock them out of their, cultural fervency because they were going to keep fighting until they
realized that this is like, okay, we're bloodlusted and we're going to kill the Americans, but like, guys, you don't understand. Like, you're facing a weapon that can wipe out your entire country.
Well, it basically, it was like scare them out of their wits.
And it worked.
So they had selected several targets as potential cities to attack, mostly in southwest Japan because that was the easiest place for the bombers to get to. And
Tokyo is gone. It's burned to the ground.
Tokyo had been firebombed. That's the other thing, too. We had been firebombing with much higher death rates.
Right, and that was the next thing I was going to bring up, is that our conventional bombing campaign was so much more deadly that, the nukes really were, in a crazy, insane way.
They were just scarier. The idea was that one bomb, one explosion could take out that much and cause, that much devastation. Um, fire, you almost get the sense that you can put out a fire. You can't put out a nuclear explosion.
This is true.
And so the targets chosen, originally Kyoto was on that list, but the Secretary of the War had studied in Kyoto during his college years and knew what a cultural treasure it was, so they removed it from the list.
Interesting.
They
They actually still took that stuff into account.
They did.
Wow.
They did because, and you can tell that American, like the American politicians at the time, were thinking about after the war, based on how successful the occupation was, because within 10 years, Japan went from being a dying imperial militarized train wreck into a booming economy and a steadfast ally of the U.S. Like, it's crazy.
And they still are.
Much of that has to do with the whole cultural outlook of the Japanese. They had thousands of years of history saying that everything they believed was correct, and that whoever defeated them, because back when they were split up into small clans, whoever beat them meant that they were better than they were. So they adopted the practices of their conquerors, because that made sense. Because they beat us, they must know something we don't, and that's the way they'd always been until 1945.
And at that point, they would turn around. So, the nukes. The original question was, what would have happened if America hadn't developed the nukes?
If the Manhattan Project had ended as a failure, and that the U.S. never developed nuclear weapons. Therefore,
it would have happened at some point. It would have happened at some point.
Maybe. Well, think about this. The hypothetical is, we couldn't get it to work, even though the theory was there. We couldn't do it, so no one else even bothered trying.
Well, I think they would have bothered trying because of all the potential benefits.
Well, the hypothetical.
France or Britain.
Well, the hypothetical is that we developed them 10 years later. The hypothetical is that they were never developed.
Freaking Heinrich Himmler, or not Himmler, what's his name? Heisenberg would have done something with it.
Well, the hypothetical, again, is we failed and no one else ever tried.
I like the Borg's theory in the chat. Canada would have dropped them instead. just a big maple leaf explosion. Everybody's drenched in syrup.
Would have been a beautiful thing.
It would have been a sticky situation.
Our Canadian overlords when we need them.
Okay, so short answer: if we didn't have the bomb, but because we had developed it in July, so let's say the Trinity test failed. That's really what we're saying here.
Yeah,
Trinity test fails.
We scrapped the project, and the Russians therefore never stole it, so they never got their hands on it, and no one else.
The U.S. population would be 2/3 what it is right now.
Yeah.
You think we would be a third smaller?
We would be a third smaller because we'd have had half the soldiers come back from the war that we did.
So you think we would have about 100? That'd be roughly 100 million people, fewer.
Damn.
Yeah, I would think so because the baby boom would not have been a baby boom because there just would have been that many more soldiers killed in battle. The war would have lasted until 1947 at least, probably 48. We would have been fighting pockets of resistance for a very long time. It would have been a mess. But the Soviet Union declared war on Japan pretty much the second.
Do you think they would
dropped the first bomb? No, they declared. It's funny. They had an armistice with Japan until the U.S. nuked. Was it Hiroshima? And at that point, then they immediately declared war. Took over Manchuria, took over the southern half of Sakhalin Island, but by the time they had done that, Japan capitulated. It was kind of hilarious. They basically did a giant last-minute land grab. So I think the Soviets would have entered the war, and I think what would have happened is they would have invaded the northern islands as a territorial move, and we may have seen a similar thing happen to Japan that happened to Korea, where it got split in half.
Germany. Yeah. We would have had a Germany situation.
We would have had a People's Republic of Northern Japan.
That would have been weird.
Yeah, we would have had a northern and southern Japan.
It would have been based on the islands, so I bet it would have been Hokkaido, and basically the big island at the top would have been the communist country.
Do we want to answer his other question about what would have happened if Germany had a truce instead, or armistice, or no, I'm sorry, if they would have surrendered but still held mainland Europe?
They would have turned in on themselves.
It would have been a basically a peace treaty where they would have ended the war without giving up any territory that they'd conquered.
Okay,
What
what
about
about
Russia or France would have been like, no, we're taking our country back?
Well, France was essentially gone, so their voices would have muffled.
France was out of the equation. Russia wasn't at war in 1940, but well, not until the middle of 1940. So when is this treaty? When is it?
This would have sometime before D-Day, but after after the conquest of Poland and France.
Before or after Barbarossa?
After.
Oh, Russia would have kept going. They would have never agreed to a treaty.
Yeah, but they'd be so pissed off.
Right, but imagine if they successfully got an armistice with the Western powers, so Germany could turn its whole attention toward Russia.
Stalin was an idiot.
I think that war would have gone a lot differently if Germany wasn't watching its back.
Oh yeah, they would have destroyed Russia. They would have at least gotten through half of Russia and completely destroyed the industrial capability. But Russia would never have agreed to an armistice.
So that could have possibly ended then with a German mega nation.
But I think what they would have done then is turned in on themselves, because there was already there were multiple plots against Hitler. There were power plays between the various generals. I think that
sure. I think I read somewhere that there were more than 100 attempts on Hitler's life.
Mm-hmm.
That man was invincible. Hitler had to take himself out.
I mean, come on, you got to love the guy that kills Hitler, right?
Yeah, at least Hitler stopped Hitler, right?
that balances out, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. He had a pretty, kill death ratio of 6 million.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Suicide.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, the guy that killed 6 million, killed 6 million people, but he also killed Hitler.
Exactly, he stopped Hitler.
You two are asses.
Draft. Tell me your final question.
All right, I'm gonna give you a choice. I got 3 left.
Okay.
So, first one is, what if Suleiman had captured Vienna?
That's Suleiman the.
Ooh, that's a good story.
Are those the Zulus?
No.
No.
I'm going to read these off. I'm going to let Beardy choose, because I think he knows the context here. My other ones are, what if the nationalists had won the Chinese Civil War?
Oh, that's a good one, too.
And what if Napoleon... Yeah, but... And what if Napoleon hadn't invaded Russia?
What if Napoleon had not invaded Russia?
So... Beardy, do you like one of those 3?
I like the first 2. I really like the Suleiman successfully invades Vienna.
Tell me more about the Zulu. So Vienna, Italy.
Oh, you're thinking? Okay, you misheard. It's not Zulu, it's Suleiman, which is Suleiman the Magnificent. Which, by the way, if you haven't heard, they found his first tomb just this week.
Nice.
Outside of in Hungary, apparently. Awesome. But anyway, Suleiman the Magnificent, Ottoman Emperor or Sultan, invaded Central Europe, and Suleiman, by the way, incredibly successful leader, expanded the Ottoman Empire, rebuilt Constantinople in a lot of ways. Okay, so before I went to Istanbul, I always begrudged him because he blew up or removed the remains of the Byzantine Church of the Holy Apostles, where all the Byzantine emperors were buried. He removed it so he could build his own mosque. But then when I went to Istanbul, I saw his mosque, and I'm like, you know what? I will forgive him because it's glorious. Anyway, he was an incredibly and long-lived too. He ruled for a very long time. Invaded and attacked Vienna. He got that far into Europe.
Siege, by the way, a lot of interesting stories about that siege.
First of all, croissants.
Correct.
The pastry we all love is in the shape of a crescent.
the baked
Yeah.
good came from that. Would you
Because-
like the story, or shall I?
You know what? I'll let you do it.
Well, thank you.
I'm gonna eat some. I'm eating some bacon cheddar cheese here and drinking some cider.
God, you're so
Bacon,
Jewish.
bacon cheddar cheese what?
Listen, I am about as Jewish as a bacon cheeseburger. So
So Jewish.
You're eating a what now?
I'm eating bacon infused cheddar cheese and drinking cider.
Nice.
It's a good combination.
Yeah, that does sound pretty good, actually.
Really good.
So, it was the Siege of Vienna. The Ottoman powers were moving into Eastern Europe and seizing a lot of territory.
And not just the Ottoman powers, a huge army.
Yeah,
Huge.
huge army, great force, very well led, very well organized. Starting to siege Vienna. Now, Vienna was the capital of Austria. So to put that in perspective, that's south of Germany.
It's
So they're
very
pretty-
deep in Europe.
They're pretty deep into Europe, and they're pretty much pushing over any resistance that's in their way.
Yep.
Now, at the siege of Austria, the city of Vienna had a very thick wall. Had a very it was a walled city. It was well defended. So they were in a typical siege scenario where they were surrounded. They were holding out for as long as they could, waiting for the rest of European armies to amass and come to their rescue.
Years. They were holding out for years.
Now, the interesting thing is that one of the major ways to break through walls was called sapping. Are you familiar with this concept?
Have you ever heard the phrase "sap my strength" or "sap someone's strength"?
Or have you
Yes.
heard the... have you ever
There's
heard
an
the
attack
concept
in Warcraft where a rogue will sap somebody and knock them out.
That's a little bit different. But there's also another concept of someone undermining you. You heard of that term?
Yes.
Okay. That's essentially what sapping is. Sapping is digging underneath a wall,
Mm-hmm.
which compromises the integrity of that wall and causes it to collapse.
And then by
You
this
would
point, they
dig
were
up-
also putting like dynamite, or not dynamite,
Right.
but explosives down.
Yeah,
there.
explosives in there and it causing underground explosions, whatever, just all sorts of stuff. So they had these sappers that their whole job was to dig underneath the walls and create breaches. So the city of Vienna had been under siege for quite a while, and there was a bakery actually built into one of the walls, or built up against one of the walls of Vienna. And one of the traits of being a baker is you get up very early in the morning and bake bread.
Yep.
So every morning, the bakery would be open very, very early. So the bakers would be there, they'd be baking bread, and then they would serve it when everyone else woke up. They saved the city because they showed up like they always did every morning, and they heard the sappers underneath the wall and reported it. It was very, very early in the morning. The sentries would never have been there to hear it, but they were there. They heard the sapping going on, and they were able to alert the Austrian defenders. So they were able to counteract the sapping effort, which essentially put the siege of Vienna, delayed it for months, because it takes a long time to sap a wall, as you might imagine.
It takes a long time to dig a tunnel that actually stays a tunnel.
Right. So it delayed the siege long enough for reinforcements to arrive and to fight off and defeat the Ottoman army. Another thing, I actually have been to the museum in Berlin that actually has Suleiman's royal tent.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's in Berlin right now. I saw it, and it is gorgeous. But anyway, what happened after the siege, after it was successfully broken by Allied forces, they commended the bakery and the bakers for their success. And as a token, as a commemoration of the victory, they actually ended up creating their own baked good in the shape of a crescent moon, which was the symbol of the Ottoman Empire. On their battle flags, they would have a crescent moon,
And it's still
white crescent. Yeah, it was a white crescent on a green background.
Yep.
So the bakery created a crescent roll as a symbol of victory over the Islamic forces. So the modern croissant in fact, is, as weird as it sounds, an anti-Muslim symbol.
Really?
It is. Well, it's like now to be fair, the crescent moon as a Muslim symbol is an Ottoman invention, and it's taken from the ancient symbols of the city of Byzantium, which was a crescent moon and a star.
Mm-hmm.
They basically wanted to drag.
It's all co-opting of co-opting of co-opting.
Co-opting of co-opting.
But that's human history in it anyway. Like
so the croissant that you can buy from Burger King nowadays is a direct descendant of pastry made by bakers in Vienna celebrating the not capture of their city. Now, my question originally, though, is what if Suleiman had captured Vienna? Let's say the bakers failed and the wall was sapped and they invaded and captured Vienna. Because what happened was that when Suleiman was sieging the city, he actually died sieging the city. It took so many years. He died there. What would have happened if he had actually succeeded?
If he actually succeeded and Austria fell, that was a major power seat for Central Europe. I think that there would have been an entrenched, defensible area that the Ottomans could have held on to for a very long time. And I think that by modern day, I think about half of what we consider Europe right now would be completely Islamic.
Now, also bear in mind, like the modern sense of an Islamic country is Middle Eastern. The medieval sense was Ottoman, and the Ottomans, in a lot of ways, they liked to emulate the ancient Romans too. They liked to promote the arts and the sciences.
Sure, no, yeah,
and
we're talking
civil
like
service and architecture.
Yeah, you're talking like ancient Baghdad kind of a thing.
So we're not
in libraries.
I feel the need to kind of point this out because. Unfortunately, especially after 9/11, now everybody is always, assuming things about an Islamic state. But the Ottoman Empire, in a lot of ways, saved, the modern area of Turkey and northern Greece from itself.
They saved a huge amount of classical texts.
Well, they burned a lot of them too, but yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah. So the point is that I think that Eastern Europe would have been completely different culturally. Completely.
Yeah. Like right now, it's Slavic dominated. So in this alternate timeline, it would have been Ottoman dominated. So basically, Eastern Europe would have essentially been Turkish.
If they had captured Vienna, it was it would have been a huge boost to Ottoman power. It wouldn't have just been like a Pyrrhic victory. I mean, just sacking the city alone would have given them tons of money. The territorial gains would have been incredible.
Yeah.
The resource gains.
Right, and it's an easily defensible spot that they could have held for generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know that there would have been... Okay, so Borg in the chat is saying that the next crusade would have caused a bloodbath. No, there wouldn't have been a crusade. There never was a crusade against the Ottomans. The Ottomans were after that period. So we're talking like the 1500s here. Actually,
the crusades were like, in the 1000s to the 1300s.
Suleiman was the 1600s, so...
Right, so this is 300 years post-Crusades.
Yeah.
Rough.
400 years post-real crusades.
Sure, I mean, the last couple ones weren't really serious anyway.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Oh, he's asking if a new crusade would have been called. I mean, that's essentially what happened with the rescue force that was sent to Vienna in the first place. But, I mean, I don't think they called it a crusade per se.
They kind of did. Poland sent... This is, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this. In the Middle Ages and up into the 1600s, Poland was a major power.
Oh yeah, they were a powerhouse. They had some of the best knights in the world.
And they sent their army to save Vienna.
So if I'm not mistaken, the winged hussars were Polish.
They were indeed.
And they were the best mounted armored force in the world at the time.
And they, I believe, fought at that battle to dispel the Ottomans.
You are absolutely correct, they did. Because in that very same Berlin museum, they had a suit of winged hussar armor.
That's pretty cool.
That is insane to see in person.
There's some really cool stuff. Like, I don't know if anybody in our audience right now is in Europe. I'm pretty sure that some of them are. Europe has some crazy cool historical stuff in their museums. Like when I was in Istanbul, or actually, the same trip I went to Istanbul, I went to Venice, and the treasury of the palace of the Doge, they have all these captured Ottoman armaments and like just rooms full of rifles and stuff.
Wow, such armaments.
Wow, such armaments, much battle standards.
So Doge.
But you know what they don't have anywhere in that Doge's palace, though, Beardy? A single, not even one speck of a pancake, with good reason.
Because pancakes suck.
Pancakes are soggy messes.
Thank you.
Pancakes are fluffy, pillowy, beautiful things.
Pillowy. You know what I think of?
Mounds. Pillowy mounds.
Pillowy mounds. Are
Pillowy
you calling
mounds of
pillowy mounds?
Pillowy
last
mounds
time I heard
mashed potatoes.
Oh,
Thank you.
I got
Thank
your
you
reference.
for
I got your reference.
Thanks, buddy.
Don't help him, Saber. He's against us.
Dude, waffles can hold in syrup.
Look,
like
I can appreciate a waffle like the next guy, okay? I
love that
I don't
phrase.
hate waffles by any stretch. I'm just saying.
Listen, people, I can appreciate like the next guy. You gotta pair that with like a thumbs up gesture, and you're kind of waving it at someone, right? Like this guy over here, I can appreciate waffles like that guy.
I'm just saying, I can appreciate waffles, okay? I understand they're crunchy, they can hold syrup, they got a lot of surface area. That's great. Waffles are fine. Waffles are good. I'm just saying, pancakes. Pillowy, fluffy, delicious pancakes. That's where it's at. Hot,
Pancakes
covered
can
in
be
butter,
good.
syrup, preferably filled with cinnamon chips. Oh, yes.
You know what though? A pancake doesn't hold up to the trials of time. You leave a pancake with syrup too long, it becomes a slurry. All right, you put syrup on a waffle, you can let it sit. You can microwave it if you need.
So we're judging the food as it's meant to be eaten, or the food as an hour after it's supposed to be eaten.
We're talking about
when you have a waffle, okay, like waffles.
Nobody
hold in
says
syrup
let go
and
of my
butter.
pancake. Okay, they say let go of my Eggo.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Yeah, because they're easier to make. You can mass produce them. That doesn't mean they're better.
I don't know. Mass-produced food has like an inherent value right there. I mean, we're talking about
Thank you, Rosie. You are correct.
They're frozen pancakes too.
Are there really?
Yes.
No. That makes me sad.
It makes me sad.
You know what you can do with pancakes?
What?
Those aren't hot cakes. Those are cold
You
cakes.
can take a hot cake and you can wrap it. You can wrap a sausage with it.
Okay, I'm from Minnesota. Okay, we are home of the corn dog. I have had a pancake wrapped corn dog sausage thing. I have dipped it in maple syrup. Still doesn't compare. Oh, by the way, Kestrel is asking where French toast fits into this equation. It's superior to all. It is the best.
French toast is damn good.
It's pretty damn good.
It's pretty
French
damn
toast. It's better
good.
in my opinion.
But see,
than
French
waffle.
toast is French toast is toast with eggs on it, and everyone loves egg. Everyone loves egg.
It's not eggs on it. It's a different thing. Oh, well, whatever.
It's eggs on it.
It is 10:42. We've had our questions. I think we can call it a night. What do you all think?
Fair enough.
So I think we've clearly delineated.
What's in there?
I know we're doing the giveaway here, so what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna count the retweets and I'm gonna announce the winner next time at the beginning of the show. That way we can have something, a big old like, hey guys, who won this one? Gotta come and see you next week.
Let's bribe our audience.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the way to do it.
All right. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Bye bye.
Later.
Bye.